go.
Good evening. Welcome to the special committee of the whole meeting for Monday, April 20th. I'm Steve Robinson and I'm be your chair tonight. We'll begin by reading the land acknowledgement. On April 20th, 2026, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. And can I have a motion for the approval of the agenda? Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Miller, that the April 20th, 2026 special committee of the whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest in general nature thereof? Seeing none, I'm going to need a motion for approval of minutes. Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor Miller, that the minutes of the March 23rd, 2026 committee of the whole meeting be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. We have no delegation tonight. We do have 3 directors and CAO report. Yep. Go ahead, CAO Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll start off with Director Clark.
Good evening, everyone. Just 2 quick things for me. First is I'm pleased to advise Council that the 2026 Spirit of the Drum Powwow is confirmed for the weekend of June 13th and 14th. Almost said the wrong date there. And will once again be hosted at Duck Island. The Powwow Planning Committee continues to meet and planning for this year's event is well underway. We're expecting a really awesome lineup of drummers and dancers. And we have more than 20 vendors that are currently confirmed selling their wares, which obviously I'm very excited about. The event continues to build on its reputation as a meaningful cultural gathering and an important opportunity for community connection, education, and celebration. You will recall that the 2025 event was fully supported through external funding sources. While staff have pursued similar funding for this year's opportunity, 2 of these 3 applications have not yet been successful. We have a number of additional applications that have yet to be adjudicated, and we are optimistic that we will continue to seek and find funding to be fully funded for this year's powwow. However, in the interest of transparency and just in case we wanted to be proactive in our planning, I'm going to advise Council that I may return at a later date with a request for additional funding outside of the approved budget if these applications don't come to fruition. That will only be in the event that it is required. So hopefully I won't be back. Staff will continue to, as I said, pursue all available funding opportunities and will provide further updates as we get more information. So that's the first thing. And the second is I just want to take a moment to recognize the absolutely outstanding performance of our junior hockey teams, the Smiths Falls Bears. The Junior B team advanced to the EOJHL hockey finals this season. They did not ultimately take home the championship. They delivered an exceptional performance, marking the strongest result since Junior B came to this town a number of years ago. Our Junior A team also had an impressive season and is currently ranked among the top teams in Canada. Rockland, their adversaries are ranked number 1 across the country, and the Smiths Falls Junior A are number 11. So that's who they're going to see this evening in Rockland. This is the 3rd time that Junior A has made the finals for the Bogart Cup in the last 4 years. They are in the midst of their playoff finals against the Rockland Nationals, which is, as I said, the top seeded team nationally. And the Bears are currently down 2 games in the series and looking to secure their first win tonight in Rockland. I would encourage you all to come to their next home game, which is Wednesday, puck drop at 7:30. There were about 900 folks in the arena last Saturday, and we'd love to see more than that coming out to cheer our Smiths Falls Bears. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you remind me the budget for the powwow, Spirit of the Drum powwow?
So this year we had hoped to secure approximately $60,000 in external funding. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thanks, Chair.
Can you speak about the MPHL tournament coming up?
Yes, I could. Is there anything in particular we'd like to know about it?
Oh, just the dates, just so the public can maybe get it in the calendar of
Sure. Yeah.
and what's happening, how many teams, and some details I know are still not confirmed.
A
But
number of details remain unconfirmed, yes. So we are looking forward to hosting a hockey tournament this weekend, starting this weekend rather on Friday, a time TBD. We're looking forward to getting a schedule, hopefully, from the organizers later this week sometime. The anticipation is that it will run Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then all throughout the week, and again, Friday, Saturday next week. So we have a number of teams coming in from across Ontario. The Smith Falls Ritos are one of them. So,
thank you.
you're welcome. All right. Thanks.
Okay, next up we have Director Dow.
Hello, good evening. I just want to do a follow-up to our RBC loan procedure. And I know we came forward with the report last week that we had to update it because the rates have changed. Council gave permission for us to be able to negotiate those rates. At the time of the reporting, it was 3.76. We were very lucky to have secured slightly lower financing, not huge, but 2 basis points, so 3.74. So the forms have all been filled out, and we did get a lower rate. So I did want to come back to council and follow up. Good news is we didn't have to go up rates at all, and the extra good news is that we did go down a little bit. So that's my director's report.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I have 3 items I'd like to provide a really high-level overview. So we've had a flurry of activity coming out of Queen's Park recently with bills and other pieces of legislation. So many of them are relevant to Smith Falls. At this point in time, we don't know how relevant they are, but I'll just go through each one of them. The first is the Buy Ontario Procurement Directive. So it applies to the provincial government and most of its agencies. There's a hive off for municipalities. My understanding is that it relates specifically to the purchase of light duty fleet vehicles and a very broad category called capital infrastructure. So we're not sure. We don't have the details yet, but we're researching what that's going to mean for a municipality the size of Smith Falls. We think it will be congruent, or at least align with the procurement policy that you passed last year, the new town policy. You'll recall as an appendix, we put a Buy Canada appendix within it. We left it open until the federal and provincial governments defined what that looks like. So it would appear we have some definition from the province. So we'll sort through it, absorb it, digest it, and bring it back, likely as an amendment to our procurement policy. I read today that it became effective April 16th, so we'll act on this fairly quickly. I'm not terribly concerned that we're gonna contravene the policy already. It's new to everyone, but we'll get back to committee with a more fulsome report in the coming weeks. Second one is it's called the Canada-Ontario Partnership to Build. So this is the one that the province and the feds announced a couple of weeks ago. It seems far-reaching. One of the initiatives was to reduce the HST on first-time home buyer on a new home. My understanding is that it was expanded to a first-time home buyer for any home. So I think that's going to open up a lot of opportunities for people. That's one element, really has nothing to do with municipalities. The other element that is salient to what we do is the DC reductions. So we're trying to get some understanding of what that means. The announcement suggested a 3-year halving, 50% of existing DCs. But we do not know at this point whether that applies to all municipalities, whether it applies to DCs above a certain threshold. So we're getting more information on that. We'll bring it back once we understand entirely what it actually means at the local level. The third one I'd like to talk about is Bill 98. It's called Building Homes and Improving Transportation Infrastructure. So it is a bill. It's out it's on the Environmental Registry for comment. We have till the 14th of May to comment. So Carl and his team are pouring through it to understand what it means. It looks like there are changes to the Planning Act that are coming, as well as the Building Code Act. It appears there's some attempt to harmonize official plans across the province. So anyway, Carl and his team will report back probably on May 11th, if not next week. We'll see how quickly we can get through it, but certainly before the 14th, we'll have something for you to consider so we all understand just what the impacts are. So there are more, but those are the ones that we believe are most relevant to Smiths Falls. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Morris, do you recall if that Canada-Ontario partnership to build was announced, if I've got the right one, it was announced a couple of weeks ago in Brampton? Was that the one where Prime Minister Carney and Premier Ford? And what was interesting in that, they were announcing funding for a recreational facility. If that's the same one.
It could very well be, yes.
So it's broader than just housing, I think, that piece of legislation, but I may be mistaken.
Correct. So once we get our heads around what it means, we'll bring it back with a fulsome review of what would be eligible for funding.
Thank you.
We understand, if I can add, that the reductions in DCs, there would be some compensatory program or policy. We don't know what that looks like. It appears to be competitive based, not application based. So on one hand, we may be giving up a known for something that's less known, but I don't want to speculate. We'll bring it back, but there's a lot of nuance and detail that we need to gather.
Councilor McKenna.
Just, I'm sure it will be fair to municipalities.
I hope so.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Moving along. We have no committee of the whole consent reports. So we'll move into priority issues and reports. CIO Morris, do you want to start on this next one for high-speed rail?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is an item that has been discussed quite extensively throughout Ontario and Quebec over the last couple of weeks. Committee will recall in December 8th, I believe it was, the folks from Alto came to this room and updated us on their development plans and the status of the project at that time. Since then, the project has gone for public engagement. The southern route was introduced after the meeting here on December 8th, so that was something new that we were not aware of before. But if we go back in time, I think for committee and people watching remotely, this is not a new topic for this table. We started discussing it in 2017. At that point, VIA created an office of their organization called the VIA High Frequency Rail Project Office. We did engage with them at the time. It was then, at that time, Council of the Day passed a resolution supporting the concept of high frequency rail. So the project developed, it evolved into what we now know as Alto, the Crown Corporation, the federal Crown Corporation that's leading the project. I would remind committee that in April, exactly a year ago, exactly 2 years ago, it was April 24th, 2024, Council passed a resolution again supporting high frequency rail. As we know, it's now being branded as high speed. But one of our strategic initiatives within the corporate strategic plan is to attract high frequency rail to Smiths Falls. So in that vein, and understanding the project has evolved, we put together a study. We brought in an expert in the form of Leading Mobility. Mr. David Cooper is here with us tonight. He and his team authored the report. And in that report, you will see, I'm sure everyone has read it, the case for a presence, some form of rail presence in Smiths Falls. That could be a station, it could be a maintenance facility, it could be a feeder line. But we feel it's important at this point to at least have a discussion and from a staff point of view, make a recommendation to at least consider the possibility. for this project. There's a lot of definition yet to happen with the project, but we feel that there are precedents in the world, and there is certain geography and rail system realities in Smith Falls that make us a suitable candidate for some sort of presence. So I'll turn it over to David, but before doing that, I just want to remind committee, we're not asking council to decide on a rail project. The request tonight is to simply decide if you want to be at the table for future discussions about a potential presence in Smith Falls. The larger discussion about building it and funding it, that's all going to happen federally. But I think we do have an opportunity to be involved in the project in some capacity as it begins to evolve. You'll also notice attached to the report is a new council resolution that we're proposing. It's similar to the one that was passed in 2024, with a notable exception that it does acknowledge that the project is now high-speed rail, not high frequency. It also states that if a presence in Smith Falls did not occur, that support by this council would not exist. So if there's a presence, council could support it. This is the recommendation. And if there isn't, that council may not support the project. So I'll leave that. We can have that discussion later if you have questions about the resolution and the intent behind it. But for now, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cooper and he can walk us through his study.
Thank you, CEO Morrison. Thank you, Chair Robinson, and members of council for having me. My name is David Cooper. I'm the principal leading mobility consulting. Maybe just a bit of background on myself. I've worked in the transit and transportation planning infrastructure space for 20 years. I've worked on several multi-billion-dollar rail projects in my career and have been involved in every stage of them, from planning, design, feasibility, through procurement, through construction, through operations, in several cities across Canada. In terms of high-speed rail, I was actually part of a pretty significant delegation that went to visit the Italian high-speed rail system back in 2020. So we got to meet with operators, we got to meet tours of maintenance storage facilities and got to see the network, as well as I've been able to, just on my own time, seen the German and French networks, which I think is actually quite relevant to this conversation. So I'm going to walk you through a bit of the technical process that we looked at and some of the strategic case. We're deliberately calling it a strategic case because we're not ultimately the ones planning and designing the system. We're providing inputs into a formal public process that Alto is providing, and we're looking for consideration for future conversations with the municipality if council chooses to do so. Next slide. So I'll just walk through where we are in the Alto process. I might actually add a little bit of layers in terms of what typically happens in a major multi-billion-dollar rail infrastructure process, and walk you through some of those steps and what's important in this conversation, how it feeds into future and current steps of the overall Alto program. There's two core asks from this document. So one is consideration of being an intermediate stop, and I'm going to purposely saying intermediate a lot. In terms of the overall Alto network, as well as potential for maintenance storage facilities, which are required infrastructure as part of a major project such as this. We'll walk through the specifics on the stop and storage facility conversations, and then we did purposely provided some international case studies that would also help spur that conversation and see what the realm of possibility is. And then happy to answer any questions after that. Next slide. So this is the public facing process that Alto is going through right now. Is they did go through a request for qualification to go out to the market to get a consortium. They awarded a $3.9 billion contract to a consortium that has some of the largest international firms on rail infrastructure globally. They also have the involvement of the French National High-Speed Rail Company, as well as Air Canada. You typically would not go through a process like this unless you're really serious about actually advancing an overall project in terms of resourcing, in terms of opening a project office, in terms of building out the staff and the private sector expertise to do the project development phase of this overall project. Right now, we're in the project development stage. Right now, it looks only as one step in this. There's actually several significant steps in this. This is where the project's defined. So this is where it's defined in terms of the alignment, the station locations, the property impacts, what's going to happen in the surrounding areas, the operational components of it, and all the associated infrastructure. So, and then not only that, it also determines the roles, responsibilities of the partners, be it municipalities, be it provincial governments, be it the federal government and the private sector in delivering the project before going into a procurement phase to hire the contractors to actually construct the system. So the federal government has put out a target of having construction commencing in 2029 to 2030 for the segment initially from Ottawa to Montreal, and then build out the system from there. So in terms of what the project agreement is, that is the binding, really the legal contract in terms of really determining the specifications of the project, determining the roles and responsibilities and how you're going to deliver the project. And then obviously the construction phase is quite extensive. And then there's a commissioning phase and then operation. So this is a generational project. It's the largest project out of the major project streams from the federal government by a significant margin. When they're also looking at things in the resource sector and ports and other things like that. So, but I think the big takeaway from this is that high-speed rail has really been a hypothetical conversation for a long time here in Canada, and you would not be advancing this much work in the public and also with your private sector partners if you weren't serious in actually delivering on a high-speed rail project. Canada is the only G7 country that does not have high-speed rail. And when it comes to economic development, productivity, and nation building, this is the conversation I think the government is really hungry to have. This is obviously a federal government project. They will be making the investment decisions, and how they work with their partners will be ultimately up to them. Next slide. One thing we typically do in a rail planning project is we cast a wide net very intentionally when we do alignment planning. So you'll see that there's pretty thick lines of two potential corridors. Smith Falls is identified there on the southern corridor, but also kind of is very close to what you would call the northern corridor. Typically, you take a wide swath to really understand and stress test different components in terms of property impacts, geotechnical considerations, the land that you need to operate the facility from in terms of the alignment from storage maintenance facilities and supporting infrastructure, the station locations. One thing that we would typically say at this stage is a lot of things still have wheels on them right now. So obviously there's a lot of work that's happening to engage the public on what you want to see in terms of where this goes. I think it will still be some time in terms of where they will actually finally confirm what that alignment's going to be. They're definitely in the process of doing that analysis. They're definitely in the process of also hiring up right now to look at the property impacts and other things like that. But I think we're still going to have some time when it's a lot of things will need to be confirmed, and how municipalities want to interact with the project is a pretty significant component where we will go next. So this would be what I would call the long list of options, and then you'll start seeing things from a short list of options to recommended option over time. But us planners intentionally do the wide swath maps just so that we can start those conversations going. Then we can start doing the technical work program to sort out which is the best alignment ultimately. Next slide. So there's two core asks from the resolution and this document. The first one is to formally consider Smith Falls as a candidate for intermediate passenger stop during the current planning and co-development phase that Alto's in right now, and then include Smith Falls in the formal site selection for a maintenance and storage facility. For this type of project, you require several maintenance and storage facilities, and those differing in scale and scope. So typically you would have pretty significant ones where you would have heavy duty rebuilds, you would have major maintenance programs operating out of them, shops and stores and things like that, maintenance bays. But then also there's a number of different what I would call secondary maintenance storage facilities that do more routine maintenance, service work, cleaning, and kind of more the smaller to intermediate type repairs. So those will need to be sorted out in different locations. These facilities are pretty big in size, even for a small one. So I think the land requirements are going to be a very challenging conversation, I think, for the program, especially in our urban areas, and there could be potential opportunities to see what is in the realm of possibility outside of those built-out urban areas for some of these facilities. And also these facilities generate a lot of long-term well-paying jobs. The initial numbers out of Alto from the building of Alto, it's about 50,000 estimated jobs. For the operations of Alto, it's 5,000. And those 5,000 people will be spread out amongst the entire quarter of the ultimate project. Next slide. So in terms of the station strategic case, one of the things that we've been looking at is what we call a tiered service. So what you'll see in high-speed rail projects all across the world is it's pretty common. You see this in the United States with the South and Northeast Corridor. You see this with Deutsche Bahn in Germany, which we'll talk about in a second. The Italian rail system does this, the Japanese, the Korean, the French, and the French rail system is part of the consortium. So this is not a unique conversation for them, but the idea is that you want to build up ridership along the corridor, but then also have intermediate stops where not every train stops at that particular station. There is a travel time penalty when you do obviously stop on high-speed rail, but then there's also opportunities to really build out your population catchment or ridership catchment for these overall projects. And we have a couple of precedents of that, but it is normal practice to actually run a tiered service on these services. It would be odd and not common to not do this, as we've seen in international case studies across the world. So one of the things that we speak about in the report that's attached to the council package is really demonstrate the benefit of a tiered service for the marginal additional cost, demonstrate Smith Falls strategic location for large catchment area, and I'll walk a little bit through that in the coming up slides. Discuss feasible station locations within Smith Falls as part of the overall route that could allow higher speed through service, and then position Smith Falls as future local railway and regional transit hub. Next slide. So what we mean by a tiered service is that within the particular station area that you would have a track work or an interlocking in train terms to have additional tracks and platforms on the particular system. It could be depicted like this or in other kind of type of configurations, but you would have a through service so that trains could stop through the overall station or continue on. Some systems, if we actually Go Transit's a really good example of that. Their express trains, even with some of the smaller stations, will typically still use the same, go by the same platforms, but just not stop. Regional local services, additional stops and connections could be, certain trips could stop within Smith Falls to do this and service that particular station platform. But one of the things that is a bit of a nuanced challenge when we look at high-speed rail is that it takes about 5 to 7 kilometers to make a turn on a high-speed rail train. The Toronto subway train is about 600 meters to do that turn at a much smaller speed. So they're not the most nimble infrastructure, but in terms of where you need to site the station, you need to have something in a straightaway that actually provides that ability to do this particular types of service with minimal curves. Next slide. One of the things that we looked at is typically when we look at transportation projects, there's always a catchment in terms of the individuals that are impacted by the transportation infrastructure service. This is just a map of looking at a 1-hour drive time from Smith Falls, and you have a catchment area of about 860,000 residents. Peterborough is 740,000. They're a confirmed station site, and we're not saying this to diminish Peterborough. It's obviously a very different population cluster and a different part of the eastern part of the GTHA. But one of the things that's interesting with Smith Falls, from our perspective, is this catchment actually does get into the city of Ottawa in terms of the western parts of the city. It is not determined right now where the Ottawa station is going to be. It could be at the Via Rail station. I know the mayor has made public comments, Mayor Sutcliffe, about using the old Senate building right on Wellington Street. One of the things that Ottawa is one of the most spread out cities in Canada, if not North America, and people don't want to go east to go west. And there is definitely a park and ride culture we have here in North America. So, in terms of, it's not far-fetched to think you might actually capture some of those residents from some of those particular trips. I spent a lot of time in Ottawa. don't know how many times I've been stuck on the 417 myself, but there is a lot of challenges getting into central Ottawa in terms of the transportation network, which might actually bear a little bit of benefit to increase to the catchment area of Smith Falls. Next slide. Smith Falls has always been a regional rail hub since the formation of your community. You have 4 branches of a rail system right now and a rail trail. So in terms of having the connective tissue on this already exists within your particular community, and there could be some potential opportunities. More so that the corridors exist, more so I think for the maintenance and storage facility conversation, because you do require several of those along this particular line. It's going to be very challenging from a property perspective for them to find these locations in urbanized areas. And I think one of the things that concerns me on this project is that there has to be an urban and rural benefits case to a nation building project. And I think that's been one of the challenges. And I think one of the wins from an economic development is getting those jobs in some of our more rural communities, and having that intersection of railway infrastructure actually makes you a very viable location for the placement of some of those jobs. This program is going to be will have to happen over several federal election cycles, several provincial and municipal election cycles, and the risk profile increases if we don't find things along the alignment for everyone versus the success of the project and really the feasibility of the project. And I think having this historical intersection of railway infrastructure and associated lands actually does help a bit of that conversation for your community. Next slide. So a couple of key points from a storage and maintenance facility. One of the things is it really brings permanent skilled jobs to your community in terms of a whole bunch of differing trades, in terms of also a number of different ancillary services that will feed into these particular facilities. Everything from millwrights, heavy rail operations, electrical, a whole bunch of different trades are required to maintain this type of infrastructure, and not just the trains, but also the alignment as well. There's a lot of maintenance jobs that have to be done. You have to inspect the rail, you have to do ongoing maintenance work on these particular programs, these particular infrastructure projects on a regular basis. There's connectivity in terms of sourcing with existing rail infrastructure is needed. And there's potential brownfield sites, particularly in communities such as Smith Falls, that already have a railway kind of operation in there that could be looked at in the future as well. Next slide. So I'm just going through a couple of different precedents that we had looked through, and there's more details of this within the report that's attached to your council package. Next slide. So the most relevant one that we found is Montagnard, Germany. It's between Cologne and Frankfurt. It was a community of 12,000 before the introduction of high-speed rail. They're an intermediate station on the line between Cologne and Frankfurt. It's now up to 15,000, so they definitely got a little bit of uplift the last couple of decades from population growth. It's an intermediate stop that could be that is utilized by local regional trains, and also could take high-speed rail services if need to, and then also again provides that ability to provide localized access and connectivity into the high-speed rail network. The next slide. Another example is the Hanginsen station in South Korea. This station was the northwest part of Seoul. Bit different, obviously, from a population perspective. We did pick this one because there was the ability of it serves itself as an intermediate station, but then also has an adjacent storage and maintenance facility that does service a lot of the high-speed rail network in that part of the country. Next slide. And then we have another example from Japan, where again, a tiered type service that provides regional connectivity to the local population, and does provide the ability to have straight through service for high-speed rail as well as intermediate service when needed. Next slide. There is another example in your package that we did look at from West Palm Beach in Florida. So they did utilize old railway lands and infrastructure for the maintenance storage facility of the new Brightline trains that they're building out a statewide regional rail network. It's not high-speed rail, but it's pretty close to it. And there's been ability to leverage existing lands to service that particular rail project. So in summary, Smiths Falls Station could expand Alto's ridership reach and allow for regional and commuter opportunities. There's feasible station opportunities that exist for tiered service that we've seen across the world. It's also common across the world. This is not a new concept for the people that are planning and designing this. A maintenance facility would bring local benefit for Smith Falls, provide a balance between the operations and cost for Alto in terms of potential land availability, in terms of regional economic impact, development for long-term sustained jobs within your part of in your community. Precedents exist around the world to demonstrate the potential of Smith Falls to act as a hub for the Western region in terms of having that population base and connectivity into the overall network. But ultimately, I think the thing I would really want to stress is that the conversation we want to have today is that there's potential opportunities for you. If you choose to close it now, it's going to really hinder your ability to have future benefits-based conversations, I think, with the federal government and the proponents of this project. Just from my own professional opinion, who's worked on the government side on these projects in the past. Next slide. And happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you, David. I'm going to break tradition here a little bit before I open the floor to everybody else. I just want to say I was impressed with the thoroughness of your report. I don't have any questions, but I had already prepared a statement in advance as to what I think, and it's got nothing to do with really anything bad or anything, but it's just stuff, and I want to get it off my chest before I open it up. So I'll start on, based on the presentation that we received from Alto in December, it was clearly stated that there would only be 3 stops in Ontario: Toronto, Peterborough, and Ottawa, with any additional stop requiring strong technical justification. So at that time, we were told we were not identified as a viable option. So given that, I was having difficulty supporting a decision to move forward with hiring a consultant to justify a stop here without bringing that discussion to council first. It was a significant step, and it should have come with transparency and direction from around this horseshoe, especially since we had only discussed and supported high-frequency rail. Smith Falls is already well positioned for inclusion in regional connectivity between smaller communities and regional centers, as well as potential maintenance facility in the event that high-speed rail moves forward, and we should advocate for that. In my opinion, we just need more frequent stops on dedicated passenger lines to make this reality for the average person with less impact to the environment. And I also think we need to acknowledge the broader reality. There appears to be little support for this initiative among neighboring municipalities, and there's growing questions about the overall viability of the project itself. The Premier even weighed in and said it doesn't make sense without more stops. So I think we need to be honest with ourselves and with our residents. If the likelihood of a stop in Smith Falls is low, and based on everything we've been told it is, then why are we dedicating time, effort, and taxpayer dollars towards something that's not going to happen? Our responsibility is to focus on priorities that are achievable, that reflect the will of our community, and that deliver real measurable benefit. And right now, for me, that doesn't meet this test. So that's just what I have to say. And now I'll open it up to everybody else. Councillor McKenna, I know you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm still absorbing your comments. Thanks, Mr. Cooper, for your presentation. Maybe on a different light, I'm still very intrigued with the options. We'd like to keep, at this point, all of our options open. To close the door at this point would be, I think, foolish and short-sighted. This is a very long range. We spread out the cost over the long term, and we spread out the benefits over a very, very long term, probably the next 50 years. So it's really not about today's needs and wants. It's about future needs and wants. It's coming very rapidly. Having said that, has Alto been, have they been silent on the tiered service option, or have they, I haven't read extensively like you, but have they, is it in any of their work that you've seen to date or their consultations?
I went to the consultation in person in Toronto, and I did not see a lot of commentary about that. The reason why we're introducing the tiered service concept is actually to be part of Councillor Robinson's conversation and referencing the Premier. At the end of the day, like, you know, there's a number of different things you may want to achieve from a high-speed rail project and the connective tissue that you want to have from that from a tiered service. You know, tiered services are very common in high-speed rail projects. The thing I do worry about is that under high-frequency rail, like the underlying rail services, you know, the value proposition has to be there for people to take the service. And part of that's going to be an access, part of that's going to be speed. And I think introducing this as a conversation does have a lot of benefits to that as a position if council chooses to do so. But one of the things that I also want to highlight as part of the conversation, it's not an either or. Even if you were, you know, I think something that would have a benefit to communities is on the maintenance storage facility, because that's going to be a challenge as well for them to site them and to resource them and to also staff them across a pretty significant piece of infrastructure. So, you know, the station conversation is one where the tiered stations is something that, you know, if councils and communities in the province want to introduce that as a conversation, this is now the time to say this is something that is a dire need or want. The other part of it is how do you have that supportive infrastructure to actually maintain this thing? And that's going to be significant through the communities that goes through and those opportunities. I think the challenge here is we're at step one of like probably 10 within the development stage. And I think, you know, sending a signal that you want to at least have that conversation at least gives you some ability to have that conversation versus saying no at this point. I've worked on the government side for 14 years on these rail projects. And when I had a community that didn't want to do something, the dynamic changes where it's like, okay, then tell us your requirements and we'll go from here versus, okay, how do we work on this together?
Mr. Chair, I'll reserve other questions as we go forward and when we get into the motion itself, but I had a couple other questions, but I'm interested to hear the conversation.
Okay. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your report. It was really well written, easy to understand. I've been part of this conversation since 2018 when I actually worked for the town directly in economic development. And at that time it was high frequency rail and we were at the center of the map. That's evolved. I found Alto's presentation disappointing when I didn't see us at the center of the universe. And so I was very encouraged when I read that perhaps there's still a chance for us to have the economic benefit of expanded rail service, and whether that's you know, Alto did mention strengthening the VIA system. So maybe that is the tiered piece, or maybe that's the supporting piece. But I think, you know, we're here to help make an impact on the economics of Smiths Falls. And I think this is a key part of that. So I do support the recommendation. I think there's long-term economic benefit. I think there's jobs. I think it brings more visitors to Smiths Falls. So I'm in full support of continuing to keep the lines of communication open, despite the fact it's now high-speed rail, as long as we are on the map again.
Okay. Mayor Pecco.
Thank you, David. I think you make a very compelling case. And I guess the tiered service is one that I think we need to try to run with. And I think it's hard to envision today what reality will look like 6, 8, 10, 15 years down the road. And different governments will come and go in there, even different leaderships of the ministry. And so this project it's evolved a lot from what we first heard in 2017. I think it'll continue to evolve a lot as we go forward. And I do agree unless it brings benefits to areas outside the major centers on the route, there's going to be opposition. And I can appreciate the fact that there's no benefit to a community, whether it's us or a rural community, it's harder to support when there's no opportunity for any benefit. But we are unique. we stand unique from the standpoint of our location in Eastern Ontario. The fact that we have existing CP lines coming through here, CN lines coming through here. We have existing via service here today. So the opportunity, certainly for maintenance and storage, I think makes probably absolute sense. And as when you mentioned there'll be a need for many of them along the route, I think that makes it makes us stand out. And if there's maintenance and storage here, if there's tracks coming here, maybe it makes all the sense in the world to also have a station. But the tiered service, so you sort of illustrated that as, I don't know if it's regular or common, but to run a tiered service with a high speed, is that more of an anomaly, or is that actually quite common in other places in the world besides the ones that you've outlined?
I'd say it's common. Like when you design your stations to accommodate those trains, then you can do it from a length and requirements perspective. You know, how many trains would actually do that is up to the service pattern and the contractual, you know, piece that they would have with the operator on that, and obviously based on ridership and community need on that. But you know, typically when you go to these other stations across the world, they're the same size platform, the same, very similar traffic, very similar communication systems that tell you customers like which ones will stop and at which particular stations and stops. We even do that on the Go system here now. So this is, again, not something that is, you know, unique in a lot of ways. So, you know, you can do that from an infrastructure perspective, but I think, you know, if your community and many others said we want to have a upfront conversation about tiered service, I think there might be something there.
Well, again, this is a multi-year, as you mentioned, multiple terms of government and potentially different governing parties through this whole process. And at some point in time, it'll be, I presume, no turning back, but or great cost and great risk if the government in the future decide to cancel it. So from my perspective, and I guess the Premier spoke to it, if we push hard enough and they hear us loud enough, the possibility for tiered services or services beyond the major centers maybe becomes a possibility. If we shut down the conversation now, and we don't carry that mantra, I think it's probably less possibility that certainly we're heard, and we're not adding the voice to that bigger amplified message. So I look at it, is there a risk what's the risk to the town to support the proposed resolution? And to stand out in Eastern Ontario in contrast to some of our neighbors who oppose this. And I think the risk is, yeah, maybe we have some neighbors who may not agree with us, but at the same time, I think they respect us based on our proximity, how much we stand out because of the existing via service coming through our community and the rail lines. And I guess to contrast that with the possible negative consequences of shutting down the conversation now. So I suggest we stick our foot in the door and keep it there. And the last question would just be, if we do that and we agree to the resolution and we want to advocate, how would you suggest we best carry this message forward? And how do we ensure that it's amplified so that the people who need to hear it hear it the most?
One would be the formal submission the municipality will be doing, granted if the council does pass that resolution. The second is I would highly recommend that you would ask for a meeting with Alto, and I'd highly recommend that you actually also talk to your surrounding municipalities within Eastern Ontario that have obviously an impact on this, because I think I'm a big tent kind of guy. Like, you'd have a lot of people in your tent on that conversation, and I think also speaking to your provincial partners on this, because if that's something of interest from them from a tiered service, might actually be quite helpful as well. I think the challenge right now is that my observation is that the value proposition is very obvious to the cities, but hasn't been very obvious to the rural communities. And I think the dynamic changes if you can actually get the benefits realization of the capital infrastructure. And I think that's where one of the challenges is. And if you don't do that as a person who's trying to put forward, the risk profile on the project increases over time to the point where it might not be politically viable down the road.
Well, and I think even the opposition we're hearing now is much broader based on the scenarios that have been outlined. I think that opposition diminishes, especially the NIMBYism concerns, when it's not going through someone's backyard, or the proximity changes dramatically. And I would also think that if there was a opportunity for access here or jobs here, I think you're right. It would some of that concern in our neighboring community would probably diminish, because I mean, if we're going to Toronto for a municipal conference, and we're catching the train here. Our colleagues from rail in Eastern Ontario are catching the same train. And I think the access point being here could create a difference if that was a reality. So appreciate your insight, your knowledge, your wisdom, and your experience, and hope that we can find a way to move forward here.
Councillor Brennan?
Thanks. Great presentation. Thanks. Just a question on your map with our regional reach, and I think you cited that we're more regional reach than Peterborough. But if I look at your map, you're going into almost Ottawa West. So I would be interested to know, and Brockville as well. So the rest of that's rural. So well, I'd be interested to know how much of that is Ottawa of the 800,000.
So that map is a 1 hour drive time, and then we did the same thing for Peterborough. I'd say probably.
I mean, if there's a stop in Ottawa, no one's going to come to Smith Falls. It's sort of my thought. Anyway,
I think once you get past the Greenbelt in Ottawa, it starts to get a bit of a wash when it comes to drive time. So Canada West, Stittsville, and areas like that. But because then you're going all the way east to go all the way west, right into a congested city center. And and your likely candidate sites is the Senate building or the Via Rail station or other areas like that. So it starts to get to the point of like the opportunity cost lost. It gets to the point of also in North America, as much as it pains me as a urban planner to say this, we have a park and ride culture. And that's where you start getting some of the viability of some of those potential Ottawa regional trips.
so thanks for that. I mean, not to get political, and this shouldn't be a political argument, but when you think about the Eastern Ontario's Warden Caucus, for instance, with over 100 municipalities, I've read their resolution. I frankly agree with it. There's no cost analysis or business case for this project. It is probably a train that has left the station. My prediction is it's probably going to go forward with the money that's already been spent on it. So I would hope that we need to at least speak up. But I think that with our neighbors, and it's not some of them, it's all of them, that have passed resolutions in opposition. And a lot of these neighbors that we have are our partners, and they're partnering with us in lots of things, and we want them to partner with us in lots more things, as we know. So I think for our resolution, I would like to see more of a nod to our municipal neighbors and the respect that we have for them and their position. And the resolution, if we're going to get into our resolution now, says that, if we don't get basically what we want, we're going to oppose it. So that's, I don't want to say that's self-serving, but I think that we need to give a nod to the rest of people in Eastern Ontario that have talked about this and appreciate their concerns. And it may or may not be NIMBYism. However, there's been projects that have cut across people's property, and I'll cite Highway 7, Highway 416, with huge twinning operations. But the difference with those are the communities in Eastern Ontario were crying for those for years and years and years. And so this is different, as we know. So I think that we need more information from Alto before I would say, yeah, this is a good spend for $90 billion. I don't know. The first part of it probably won't be done till 2040 or something like that. And then our part would be when we're all in underground. Probably, maybe not you. But anyway, I think today I think hopefully there's a way we can thread this needle and say, yeah, we want to be part of it. However, we support our neighbors as well. So I don't know how committee feels we can do that. But I think it starts with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus resolution, and there's one upcoming, I understand, at Lanark County, which I've read as well, which I agree with. So they've put out certain conditions in recognition of the fact that the project is going forward, which I said, the train's probably left the station. So it just depends on which route they take, I think. So those are my thoughts. I think it's great to have here, but if to me, as one of the other local mayors said, if it affects my neighbors, it affects me. So it does affect our neighbors. So there's got to be a way to mitigate that. Thank you.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to check. I assumed that we would have questions for Mr. Cooper at this point and then put the resolution on the floor. But if we're talking about the resolution, I'm prepared to wholeheartedly support to move the motion. I would even go so far as to say we drop the second part, which is the conditional piece that says, if we don't get this, we don't support it. I would support the high-speed train coming through our region. I wanted our community to benefit from it without the condition that if we don't get it, we don't support it. This is bigger than our town, bigger than Lanark County. This is a national project that brings benefit to our whole country. So this is about thinking bigger. And I could say almost for a fact that there's no municipality that has had more conversations or done more research into the pros and cons of this opportunity than Smith Falls. And so my colleagues in the other regional municipalities, they looked at it and they, for good reasons, they're opposing it. I understand that. But to have a ribbon of rail, the width of a Canadian football field, not the length, but the width, running through probably, is very, would probably have the least impact on our communities. I have a lot of empathy for my rural neighbors who can see their communities divided or farms divided. I get that. Stop or from a yard. So when you're ready to put that motion on the floor, Mr. Chair, I will be happy to move it.
Mayor Paco.
Just to note, the Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus met earlier today. The Warden's Caucus letter resolution was on the agenda, and the decision was to not support it and to not have it leave every municipality to have the empowerment to make their own choices on the project.
Okay. Any other comments or questions or Councilor McGuire?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming tonight presentation. I think, I don't know that there's a slam dunk in the report, but I think when it comes down to it, any time that something like this has been proposed and built, it's been disruptive to communities that it goes through. And if I think of the St. Lawrence Seaway, whole communities were flooded and moved. And thankfully this project isn't at that scale of disruption. I definitely see benefits of having this project go forward at a national level, but at a municipal level, we're elected by the residents of Smith Falls and we work for the residents of Smith Falls. And I think to turn our back to the negotiation table at this point would be irresponsible. And as Councillor Brennan says, if the train has left the station, it's our duty to negotiate the best possible benefit for Smith Falls. And I think right now with this report and the recommendation that's been put forward, that does it for us. I don't think by any means is what proposed tonight would negatively affect our neighbors, or it's got nothing to do with how it's going to go. But if a decision's made that the project is going to go forward, this seems to be the best ideas that can lead to the best benefit for Smith Falls.
Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. I'm sitting here being quiet, trying to take all this in. And I definitely have concerns. I really do. Who's going to use this? What's it going to cost to use this? Yes, we need rail system that everyone can use. It's available to everybody and affordable. Affordable is definitely where I'm going. I do agree that I think we still need to be at the table talking, but I'll also tell you that I can be real quick to say, no, I want nothing to do with it. I've read a lot of reports. I hear the concerns from the like municipalities, from the people there. I definitely hear their concerns. So whatever happens here has to happen in a very gentle way so people don't get hurt or find their finances being hurt or their property destroyed. But I can agree to continue to talk. I can agree to do that. And maybe it's too late. Like maybe the decisions have been made. Maybe the train has left the station and maybe there isn't any more to be said. But let's keep talking. Let's see what we can do, but let's not disrupt this country any more than we have to.
Any other questions, comments?
I guess just to wrap up my thoughts, I do agree the train's off the station from the perspective that this is going ahead. They've already invested billions so far. And I think there's wide recognition and broad support in the city's centers that will ultimately be on the route and benefit from this. And those are millions of population compared to maybe the hundreds of thousands in the small and rural areas which are opposed. And frankly, I guess if you look at where the government's focused on support, it's the cities that determine the future governments of this country, not so much the rural areas. So I think they will hear us, and they're going through a process right now to hear the rural areas and smaller municipalities. But in the end, they're also hearing positives and desire from the bigger centers that want this. So I agree. I think the train's left the station. This project will be proceeding, and it will take some time. And hopefully, all of us will have the opportunity to hop on at some point in time in our lifetimes. But to your comment, Councillor Quinn, it's how do we stay at the table? We need to make sure we can keep that conversation going. And ultimately, I think if we recognize that, yes, there is a degree of disruption for any major project, whether it be the St. Lawrence Seaway, whether the 416 and the Highway 7 expansion and 417, there is disruption when these things happen. And there will be some degree of disruption when this happens, but I also am confident that will be it will be minimized. Not that it won't be impactful, but those people who are affected will be compensated appropriately and treated fairly. I think we have that theme carried through the consultations. And I think it's important, again, that we maintain the conversation. And as Councillor McGuire really reminded us, we're here focused on representing our constituents. And we don't see a disruption within our borders. If the train does come through, it's probably not even going to be right through the middle of the town. It's going to be on the edge of the town. But it brings great benefit to people who live here from a property value, from an economic development standpoint, from a job standpoint. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's important that we sort of stick our foot in the door and keep it there until they push it out. And the only way we can do that is by support the resolution.
Any more? Councillor Quinn?
Yes, Mayor Panko, I do hear what you're saying, but guess what? I don't think the city should be the ones that have all the say. I think the municipalities, the rural municipalities, we need to remain strong and we need to be guiding all of this. And there could be all kinds of ways that this could go through and stay within the rail system that's there now, only enhance it, make it bigger, whatever, without disrupting a whole lot. My mind just, I haven't a problem with accepting it all, but there could be ways to do it. I always figure there's always two sides to every story. So let's look at everything. And let's look at the best way that if this does go ahead, that it goes ahead without a whole lot of disruption to people. And Mayor said people being compensated. I don't agree that people get compensated enough for if they lose part of their property. I really don't agree with that. I've known other things that have gone through when people have lost their property and they certainly have not been compensated the way they should have been. So that's the other thing that has to be we have to be very cautious about. And I'm not saying let's stop talking. Let's continue to talk.
Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone's comments and I respect them. I understand. Here's a bold prediction for you. Lanark County has 78,000 people. They have 9 governments. Someday someone in the province is going to say, guess what? That doesn't work for us. 9 CEOs, 9 fire departments, 9 this, 9 that for 80,000 people. It happened, I don't know, in 1992. I would guess within the next near future, something like that might happen again. And then we will be dealing with municipal partners. So, as I said, I respect everybody's opinion, but that day will probably come in my lifetime if I live long enough. But anyway, just put that out there.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate it. So would you like to make a motion?
Well, I'm not in committee, but I certainly, what I've heard, and I'm not trying to do your job, Mr. Chair, is there's majority of council would like to see this
Yes, you're right.
resolution come forward tonight at the council meeting.
Well, you know what? I've got more than 3 people written down in favor of that, so that's exactly what's going to happen. It'll come forward at the council meeting. All right, so moving on, we've got the 2026 Compliance Audit Committee appointment with Clerk Selwyn.
Thank you. This probably won't generate as much discussion as that did, but I'll take a shot at it. So this comes forward since Council's already adopted the terms of reference for the Compliant Audit Committee, which is part of the Municipal Elections Act. We now have to appoint membership for that committee. Again, the Lanark County clerks have worked together and put a joint advertisement out. In reality, we would have loved to have 6 people come forward so that there's 3 on the committee and 3 for backups. However, we've only had 3 apply. So bringing this forward tonight to see if council would pass a motion to have David Nusko, Jason Uwong, and Rhonda Whitmarsh appointed to the Lanark County Compliance Audit Committee. All 3 applications have been vetted through the Lanark County clerks and recommended for appointment throughout our municipalities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We have no committee, board, and external organization updates. We do have an in-camera session. So I would like a motion that we move into closed session. Anybody? Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Quinn. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls is provided in Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. Move into a closed meeting at 6:09 p.m. to discuss a personal matter about an identifiable individual. All in favor? Carried. We shouldn't be too long.
back on, Mayor Pinko.
Thanks for waiting. Glad it was short and sweet. The Rising report is that we discussed a couple of committee appointments and accepted them. They'll be brought forward at a later date to council. Moving on, we have no information or correspondence items ready at the moment. Seeing none, no notice of motions. So I need a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor Brown, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:13 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of committee meeting. All in favor? Carried.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to this meeting of Smiths Falls Town Council for Monday, April 20th, 2026. I'll open the meeting with our land acknowledgement. On Monday, April 20th, 2026, we acknowledge that the sacred land in which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and has rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We're grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We're mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, and being mindful of generations to come. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:17 p.m. Motion for approval of the agenda is with Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robinson that the April 20th, 2026 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Robinson, that the April 20th, 2026 regular council meeting agenda be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. I'll ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest in general nature thereof. None. We have no minutes this evening. Council reports. Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had an Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting last week. We discussed the upcoming Disability Awareness Week from May 24th to 30th and Red Shirt Day on May 29th. We had a delegation from the Community Improvement Plan on behalf of Maria Elmsley, who explained the programs for accessibility improvements for the committee, and there was questions. We also had a delegation from Rob Moore from the Rural FASD Support Group, who explained their program, and they've got an upcoming walk coming up in Lordridge Park, which I'm drawing a blank on the day, but it's going to be in May, I believe, so more to come on that. And our next meeting, I think, is coming up in May, second Tuesday of May, probably.
Thank you. Any further reports? Seeing none. I have no reports myself. I do have a few proclamations. First one is Emergency Preparedness Week 2026, May 3rd to 9th. Whereas Emergency Preparedness Week, a national awareness initiative and an opportunity for you to take action to ensure you're prepared to protect yourself, your family, and your community during an emergency. Whereas this year, the theme is Be Prepared, Know Your Risks, which focuses on understanding local hazards like floods, wildfires, and power outages. Whereas the safety of our community is a responsibility of each and every one of us, we must prepare now for a safe and healthy tomorrow. Now therefore be resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smith Falls, do hereby proclaim May 3rd to 9th, 2026 as Emergency Preparedness Week in the Town of Smith Falls, and urge all residents to gain a better understanding of the need to prepare for the possibility of an emergency by knowing your risks, making a plan, and creating an emergency kit. Second proclamation is a National Day of Mourning, April 28th, 2026. Whereas every worker has the right to return home safe and sound at the end of each workday. Whereas the Town of Smith Falls honors the millions of Ontarians impacted by workplace fatality, injury, or illness. Whereas April 28th is observed across Canada and in countries around the world as a National Day of Mourning for workers killed, injured, disabled, or suffered disease as a result of work. Whereas the Town of Smith Falls recognizes the importance of health and safety education through the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Whereas by working together with employers, workers, and health and safety partners, we can prevent injuries and deaths to workers before they occur. Now therefore be resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smith Falls, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2026 as a National Day of Mourning in the Town of Smith Falls. Third proclamation is Community Living Month, May 2026. Whereas Community Living in Ontario develops policy solutions and advocates for changes that increase the community participation, inclusion, and belonging of people labeled as having an intellectual disability. Whereas this includes the more than 250,000 people who have an intellectual disability and their families in Ontario, who Community Living in Ontario has been advocating for and with for over 70 years. With Community Living Month as a province-wide annual awareness campaign to recognize the accomplishments of the community living movement. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smith Falls, do hereby proclaim May as Community Living Month in the Town of Smith Falls, and that all residents are encouraged to join Community Living Ontario as they celebrate hashtag CL Month 2026 as they build inclusive communities alongside people with intellectual disabilities and their families. And the fourth proclamation is Drinking Water Week, May 3rd to 9th, 2026. Where the Town of Smith Falls recognizes that water is our most valuable natural resource, whereas drinking water serves as a vital role in daily lives, serving an essential purpose to health, hydration, and hygiene needs for the quality of life our citizens enjoy. Whereas tap water delivers public health protection, fire protection, support for our economy, and the quality of life we enjoy. Whereas the hard work performed by the entire water sector designing capital projects, operators ensuring the safety and quality of drinking water, or a member of a pipe crew maintaining infrastructure communities rely on to transport high quality water from its source to consumers' taps. And whereas the citizens of our town are called upon to help protect our source water from pollution, practice water conservation, and get involved with their water by familiarizing themselves with it. Now therefore be resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smith Falls, do hereby proclaim May 4th to 10th, 2025 as Drinking Water Week in the Town of Smith Falls. And the final proclamation is Earth Day Canada. Whereas Earth Day Canada was initially celebrated on April 22nd, 1970, marking the inception of the environmental movement and has since evolved into the largest participatory environmental movement on the planet. And Earth Day Canada is an environmental organization that helps individuals, municipalities, and organizations reduce their impact on the environment by taking concrete action on Earth Day and every day. Whereas the theme for Earth Day 2026 Earth Day Canada 2026 is conscious consumption to encourage us to consume less but better in order to reduce our impact on the planet while improving our quality of life without necessarily implying deprivation. Now therefore be resolved that I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the Town of Smith Falls, hereby declare April 22nd as Earth Day in the Town of Smith Falls and urge all citizens of the Town of Smith Falls to participate in activities and initiatives which support environmental awareness and stewardship, and visit https://earthday.ca for more information. And that's it for the proclamations. We have no consent agenda. We do have 3 motions as our official part of business. Our first is with Councillor McKenna, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire that the Integrity Commissioner Services Annual Report 2025, dated March 19th, 2026, be received.
Thank you. Further information? Yeah. And further discussion?
This is an annual requirement that the integrity, it's part of the legislation, the Integrity Commissioner must report on previous year's activity. And he's offered some, there wasn't a lot of activity, which is what we like. And he's offered some thoughts on how to improve services going forward.
Thank you. Any further comments? Moved by Councillor McKenna, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that the Integrity Commissioner Services Annual Report 2025, dated March 19th, 2026, be received. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Councillor McKenna, Councillor Quinn, you were up next.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that David Nisco, Jason Huang, and Rhonda Whitmarsh be appointed to the Joint Lanark County Compliance Audit Committee for the term of November 15th, 2026 to November the 14th, 2030, to deal with applications from the 2026 election and any by-elections during the next council term.
Any further discussion, Councillor Quinn?
Pretty self-explanatory. These people will be looking after any of the election issues that come forward within this
coming term. Thank you. Anything further? Moved by Councillor Quinn, seconded by Councillor Brennan, that David Nusco, Jason Hoang, and Rhonda Whitmarsh be appointed to the Joint Lanark County Compliance Audit Committee for the term November 15th, 2026 to November 14th, 2030, to deal with applications from the 2026 election and any by-elections during the next council term. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And Councillor McKenna, you have the final piece of business.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McGuire. Please bear with me, it's a little long. Whereas the federal government has identified Alto High-Speed Rail as a nation-building project to deliver faster, more reliable passenger rail service, strengthen regional connectivity, and support Canada's climate objectives through a transportation shift. And whereas the Alto High-Speed Rail Line is intended to provide more attractive passenger rail service along the Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec City corridor, to encourage modal shift and maximize ridership, economic impact, and public value. And whereas the Town of Smith Falls strategic plan identifies higher order rail service in our community as a priority. And whereas the Town of Smith Falls is centrally located in Eastern Ontario and situated between Lanark and Leeds and Grenville counties, representing a population of 860,000 people within a 1-hour drive. And whereas Smith Falls is geographically situated along the existing dedicated passenger rail corridor offered by Via Rail, and therefore represents a natural and logical access point to interconnect the existing and new higher order passenger rail services for optimum accessibility. And whereas the establishment of maintenance and storage facilities to support Alto service in Smith Falls presents a significant opportunity to advance local economic development through job creation, investment attraction, and the strengthening of regional rail industry. And whereas a passenger rail station in Smith Falls would contribute to Alto's mandate of supporting strong ridership demand, enable meaningful shifts from passenger vehicles, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and ensuring regional access to high-speed rail across Eastern Ontario. Therefore, be it resolved that Smith Falls Council call on the Federal Minister of Transportation to enhance Alto's mandate to include the addition of a Smith Falls presence on the proposed Alto high-speed rail network, and that Smith Falls Council expresses its support for the high-speed rail project, provided there is a rail system presence in Smith Falls. And further, that there is no rail system, if there is no rail system presence or direct rail link to the high-speed system in Smith Falls, then Smith Falls Council formally opposes the project, as it would miss an opportunity to serve a large geographical area in Eastern Ontario, and accordingly offer no value or benefit for town residents and businesses or the broader geographic region. And that a copy of this motion be sent to the Right Honourable Mark Carney, MP, Prime Minister of Canada, the Honourable Steve McKinnon, MP, Minister of Transport, Martin Imblot, President and CEO of Alto, Scott Reed, MP Lanark Frontenac, John Jordan, MPP Lanark Frontenac Kingston.
Give you a moment to catch your breath, have a drink, and add any further comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. This has been a long-standing agenda item for the town of Smith Falls, going back to the introduction of our 2017, and then it was built into our strategic plan in 2018. Earlier motions from the town have supported ongoing dialogue to see how our community could benefit from this potential opportunity. At the time, we were talking about high frequency. Now we're talking about high speed. The community is uniquely situated, as identified in our companion document, which we discussed at council. We don't have all the answers yet. We don't know everything on how this is going to proceed, but with the information we have, with the research we've done, with the experts we've consulted, we believe through this motion that the town is keeping the door open for significant benefits of this opportunity going forward, and not closing the door by turning our backs on it. For 8 years, I've been your representative, along with you, Your Worship, on Lanark County Council. We've had a decades-long positive relationship with our neighbors, not just within Lanark County, but beyond. We don't always agree. And this is an instance where even the county said they don't support it, or they're going to debate that on Wednesday night. But they did say if it does go ahead, they want to see a local station in Lanark County, or they want to see a local rail yard to support the infrastructure for this. So even though we disagree each other, we have a lot of respect with our neighbors. We understand their concerns. We've heard them. It's not our case to answer all the questions. It will be up to Alto to do that. But we respectfully have a different opinion. And we believe that for generations to come, if we get what we would like out of this endeavor, our community, our children, our grandchildren, and indeed the entire country will benefit from this opportunity. So a lot of what we said earlier is already recorded, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any further comments? Moved by Councillor McKenna, and seconded by Councillor McGuire. Whereas the federal government has identified Alto High-Speed Rail, HSR, as a nation-building project to deliver faster, more reliable passenger rail service, strengthen regional connectivity, and support Canada's climate objectives through a transportation shift. Whereas the Alto high-speed rail line is intended to provide more attractive passenger rail service along the Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec City corridor to encourage modal shift and maximize ridership economic impact and public value. Whereas the Town of Smith Falls strategic plan identifies higher order rail service in our community as a priority. Whereas the Town of Smith Falls is centrally located in eastern Ontario and situated between Lanark and Leeds Grenville counties, representing a population of 860,000 people within a 1-hour drive. Whereas Smith Falls is geographically situated along the existing dedicated rail corridor operated by Via Rail, and therefore represents a natural and logical access point to interconnect the existing and new higher order passenger rail services for optimum accessibility. Whereas the establishment of maintenance and storage facilities to support Alto services in Smith Falls presents a significant opportunity to advance local economic development through job creation, investment attraction, and the strengthening of the regional rail industry. Whereas a passenger rail station in Smith Falls will contribute to Alto's mandate of supporting strong ridership demand, enabling meaningful shifts from passenger vehicles, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and ensuring regional access to high-speed rail across eastern Ontario. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Smith Falls Council call on the Federal Minister of Transportation to enhance Alto's mandate to include the addition of Smith Falls' presence on the proposed Alto high-speed rail network. And the Smith Falls Council expresses its support for the high-speed rail project, provided there is a rail system presence in Smith Falls. And further, that if there is no rail system presence or direct rail link to the high-speed system in Smith Falls, the Smith Falls Council formally opposes the project as it would miss an opportunity to service a large geographic area in Eastern Ontario, and accordingly offer no value or benefit for town residents and businesses or the broader geographic region. That a copy of this motion be sent to the Right Honourable Mark Carney, MP, Prime Minister of Canada, the Honourable Steve McKinnon, MP, Minister of Transport, Martin Imblo, President and CEO, Alto, Scott Reed, MP, Leonard Frontenac, John Jordan, MPP, Leonard Frontenac, Kingston. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Yes.
If we could just, it's my error. We're also have a motion to formally accept the draft strategic case that was prepared and presented this evening.
Okay.
I just sent some draft wording over to CA Morris to make sure I have it correct. And once we do, I see Councillor McGuire said he would move that motion.
Okay.
If council's okay with if I have support to add it to the agenda.
Just to accept it.
Yes, CA Morris.
Your worship, I have reviewed it, just remove the word draft and we're good to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was afraid you're going to ask me to read that again, so I'm relieved.
This is much shorter.
Okay.
All right, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that council accept the draft Smith Falls Alto strategic case. Or sorry, that Smith Falls accept the Smith Falls Alto strategic case prepared by Leading Mobility and direct staff to submit the advocacy document in response to the Alto public consultation and engagement process.
Thank you. Forward the laptop, please. Further discussion, Councillor McGuire?
I think you and Councillor McKenna articulated it multiple times. This is just for the report section of it that we reviewed at Committee of the Whole tonight. No further comment.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor, no further comment across the horseshoe. Moved by Councillor McGuire, seconded by Councillor McKenna. The council accept the draft Smith Falls Alto draft. The council accept the Smith Falls Alto strategic case prepared by Leading Mobility and direct staff to submit the advocacy document in response to the Alto public consultation and engagement process. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we have no bylaws, inquiries, and announcements. Councillor Brennan.
Thanks. I'm going to incorporate a trivia question in my announcement. So the announcement is yesterday, the Rotary Club hosted a trivia challenge in support of the Friends of the Library. I just want to say that it was a full house, 20 teams. Everybody had a lot of fun. I was a runner, so I was tired. I'm not sure what was raised, but I know that the 50-50 was worth $420. And it was won by a member of the Canadian Rotary who turned it back in. So thank you for that. So when I was there, my old history teacher, Doug Phillips, was there, and a light bulb came in my head about baseball, right? Because he's written this. Have you read this?
No.
So this is a baseball summer story of the 1937 Smith Falls Beavers, which I got off him a while ago. So he wrote down this question out of the book. So just as a background, the 37 Beavers were a minor league team, professional minor league team, and they played Class C Canadian American League, Ogdensburg Colts, Oswego Netherlands, Rome Colonels, Gloverstown Glovers, Brockville Pirates, Ottawa Braves, and Perth Cornwall Bisons. So the question that Doug provided me, how many players from the 1937 Beavers made it to the major leagues?
1.
2.
Oh. Not any.
So Xavier Resenko, he was from New York City. He played for the Pittsburgh Pirates from 1943 to 1945. And Walter Lanfranconi from Barrie, Vermont, he was a pitcher. He pitched for the Chicago Cubs in 1941. Then he went to the minors. He pitched for the Boston Braves in 1947. And Doug made an interesting note. He pitched in Jackie Robinson's first game.
Wow.
So it's a great book. I have to get through it again, but I'll just read the back of it because it'll make you want to read it. This is the story of a community in a certain time and place, an industrious, progressive town with large, stable employment base in manufacturing and transportation. Smith Falls enjoyed several distinct and attractive features, a rich sporting history, and a tradition of rivalry with several neighboring communities. We all know about that. If the Depression was not yet in the distant memory, the worst period was a few years in the past. In 1937, Smith Falls men were working. The stores on the main street were open for business. Hotels and boarding houses were full. And it was the year of professional baseball came to town. So I recommend it.
It's great.
Yeah.
An unknown connection between Smith Falls and Jackie Robinson.
There you go.
Awesome.
Just like Larry Robinson. That's another trivia question.
Okay, we've got trivia next council meeting. Volunteers?
Come on.
Okay, I'll come up with something.
Good.
Okay.
Well,
Motion for adjournment. Oh, it's no confirmatory bylaw. Motion for adjournment is, of course, with Councilor Robinson.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Brennan, that the council adjourn its proceedings at 6:40 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councilor Robinson, second by Councilor Brennan. This council adjourns proceedings at 6:40 p.m. Stand so adjourned to the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.